Nathaniel Hart had spent most of his life on the sprawling Montana ranch that had belonged to his family for generations. He knew every hill, every fence post, every grazing cow by heart. Yet, despite the beauty of the land and the pride of his work, there was an emptiness in him that no amount of toil could fill. Years of solitude had hardened his heart, and he had long lost faith in love. The townsfolk often remarked that Nathaniel was a man of few words and fewer emotions, a rugged cowboy who kept his feelings buried under layers of pride. Christmas was approaching, and the ranch was already covered in a thick blanket of snow. The wind howled through the trees like a restless ghost, and the distant mountains loomed against the gray sky. Nathaniel moved with purpose, checking the fences, guiding the cattle into the barn, and making sure the ranch survived the harsh winter. Life here was simple, predictable, and lonely. As dusk settled and the first stars appeared, Nathaniel noticed a strange shape in the distance, struggling through the snowdrifts. At first, he thought it might be a lost cow, but as he drew closer, he realized it was a woman. Her small carriage had overturned, and she was shivering violently in the freezing air. Panic and determination surged through him simultaneously. Without hesitation, Nathaniel dismounted, trudging through the snow with long, powerful strides. "Hey, are you all right?" he called, his deep voice cutting through the storm. The woman looked up, her face pale but striking, framed by strands of dark hair plastered against her cheeks by the wind. I don't know," she stammered, teeth chattering. "My carriage, it's stuck. I can't move." Nathaniel dropped to his knees beside her, wrapping a heavy coat around her shoulders. The chill was biting, but he didn't notice. All his attention was on ensuring she was safe. Carefully, he helped her to her feet, supporting her as they made their slow, arduous way toward his cabin. Every step was a battle against the snow, but Nathaniel's resolve was stronger than the storm. By the time they reached the ranch house, both were exhausted, their breaths forming small clouds in the icy air. Nathaniel guided her inside, shedding his wet gloves and coat. The warmth of the fire hit her instantly, and she sank into a chair, trembling. Nathaniel handed her a blanket and a cup of hot cider. "What's your name?" he asked, kneeling nearby. "Eliza," she whispered, her voice soft yet resilient. I was traveling to a nearby town. My carriage got lost in the storm." Nathaniel nodded, watching her closely. Something about her presence stirred a long-buried emotion in him, a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years. Gratitude, yes, but also, hope. In her eyes, he saw trust, and in her smile, faint as it was, a warmth that cut through his loneliness. For the first time in a long while, Nathaniel felt a connection, a reminder that life had more to offer than work and silence. He had rescued her from the snow, but somehow, it felt as if she had rescued him, too. That night, as the fire crackled and the wind rattled the windows, Nathaniel realized something he hadn't admitted to himself in years. Maybe, just maybe, Christmas had brought him something far more precious than snow or solitude. It had brought him a chance at hope. The storm raged on outside, covering the Montana landscape in a blinding white that made the world seem both endless and silent. Inside the cabin, however, warmth radiated from the fireplace, casting flickering shadows across the wooden walls. Nathaniel moved around with quiet efficiency, stoking the fire and checking the food he had set on the stove. Eliza sat wrapped in a blanket, her hands cupped around a steaming mug of cider, the warmth seeping into her frozen fingers. "I'm sorry for showing up like this," she murmured, her voice still soft but steady. "I didn't mean to trouble you." Nathaniel shook his head. "Trouble? Not at all. Out here, we learn that trouble finds us whether we like it or not. You're just lucky the storm didn't get worse." His tone was gruff, but there was a subtle kindness in his eyes that caught her off guard. As the hours passed, they talked. Nathaniel learned that Eliza was a mail-order bride, traveling to start a new life in a distant town. She spoke about her hopes and fears with surprising openness, revealing the courage it had taken to journey alone through the wilderness. Nathaniel listened intently, fascinated not just by her words, but by the quiet strength in the way she carried herself. "You've been through a lot," he said finally, after a long silence. "Most people wouldn't survive out here, especially not alone in this weather." Eliza smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and self-assurance. "I suppose I've always believed in taking chances," she replied. "Even if they scare me." There was a moment of quiet between them, filled only by the crackle of the fire and the distant howl of the wind outside. Nathaniel found himself studying her face, noticing the way the firelight danced in her eyes, and realizing, with an unexpected jolt, that he was drawn to her, not just out of obligation but because of something deeper. Something long dormant. Dinner came and went, simple and hearty, yet shared with laughter and warmth that Nathaniel hadn't felt in years. He told her stories of life on the ranch, of the endless winters and the stubborn cattle, and she listened, captivated by the rhythm of his words. When it was her turn, Eliza spoke of her childhood in a small town, of music lessons and dreams she had almost forgotten, of family she missed but hoped to honor in her new life. Night fell, and snow continued to fall outside, transforming the world into a silent, glittering expanse. Nathaniel showed her to a guest room, where a bed with thick quilts awaited. "You'll need your rest," he said simply. "The storm isn't letting up yet." As Eliza settled beneath the covers, she looked at him and whispered, "Thank you, Nathaniel, for saving me." He nodded, unsure why his chest felt heavier and lighter all at once. No one deserves to be out in that storm alone. It was the right thing to do. And for the first time in years, Nathaniel felt a stirring of something he had long denied, the possibility of connection, of hope, of love. The fire burned low, snow drifted endlessly outside, and two strangers found themselves sharing more than shelter. They shared a quiet understanding that their lives had changed forever. The days following the storm were calm but icy, the ranch blanketed in pristine snow that sparkled under the pale winter sun. Nathaniel and Eliza settled into a quiet routine, each day bringing them closer in ways neither of them expected. Nathaniel showed her how to care for the cattle during the freezing mornings, his large hands guiding hers as she learned to open the barn gates and feed the animals. She struggled at first, slipping on the icy ground or nearly dropping a bale of hay, but Nathaniel's patient instructions and quiet encouragement made every mistake feel like a lesson rather than a failure. "I didn't realize ranch life could be so demanding," Eliza admitted one morning, brushing snow from her boots. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and Nathaniel couldn't help but notice how the soft light highlighted the curve of her smile. "Demanding, yes," he replied with a grin, "but honest work keeps a man, and sometimes a woman, grounded." After the morning chores, they returned to the cabin for lunch, the fire roaring and filling the room with warmth. Eliza brought out a small harmonica she had carried, a cherished remnant of her life before the journey. As she played, the notes floated softly through the cabin, filling the space with a melody that Nathaniel found both foreign and comforting. The music brought laughter, too, as he attempted to hum along, utterly off-key, earning a playful shake of her head. "You're hopeless," she said, smiling, though her eyes shone with warmth. "Maybe," he admitted, "but I'm willing to try." Their days passed in a rhythm that felt natural, feeding cattle, clearing snow, cooking meals together, and stealing moments by the fire to share stories. Nathaniel discovered that he had long forgotten how to talk without restraint, and Eliza learned to trust not only the safety of the ranch but the man who had offered it so freely. They shared laughter over minor mishaps, spilled milk, frozen boots, a horse that refused to cooperate, and in those moments, the cold world outside seemed distant and irrelevant. One evening, after a long day in the snow, Nathaniel led Eliza outside to watch the moon rise over the ranch. The snow glimmered like millions of tiny diamonds, untouched and perfect. She breathed deeply, marveling at the quiet beauty, and he felt a sudden urge to reach for her hand. She looked at him, eyes bright in the moonlight, and he took it gently, a gesture that felt both natural and electrifying. Do you think life can really change this fast?" she asked softly. Nathaniel thought for a moment, watching her face illuminated by the silver glow. "I think it can," he said finally. "If you let it." The snow continued to fall lightly, a soft whisper over the landscape. Nathaniel realized that the connection he felt with Eliza was more than gratitude or relief. It was something deeper, something he hadn't allowed himself to hope for in years. That night, as they returned to the cabin, he understood that Christmas had given him more than a rescue. It had given him a chance to rediscover his heart, piece by piece, in the company of a woman who had unexpectedly become the center of his world. Christmas morning arrived on the Montana ranch with a quiet brilliance. The storm that had trapped Eliza days before had passed, leaving the world sparkling under a clear, pale sky. Frost coated the fence posts and barn roofs, and the snow crunched under every careful step. Nathaniel woke early, as was his habit, but this morning, something felt different. The air seemed lighter, the light softer, and his heart, long closed and guarded, was unexpectedly open. He found Eliza in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared a simple breakfast. The smell of fresh bread and hot cider filled the cabin, and Nathaniel realized how natural it felt to see her here, a part of this home he had long thought of only as his own. "Merry Christmas," she said, looking up with a smile that made his chest ache in a good way. "Merry Christmas," he replied, unable to hide the warmth in his voice. He reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. After breakfast, they bundled up and stepped outside. The ranch was quiet, a pristine winter wonderland. Nathaniel showed her the newly cleared paths, the cattle that had survived the storm, and the fences he had repaired. Every detail of the ranch, usually mundane to him, seemed alive with beauty in her presence. "You've built something incredible here," Eliza said softly, her eyes scanning the sprawling land. "Not just the ranch, but this life." Nathaniel felt a lump in his throat. "It wasn't enough, not until you came along," he admitted, his voice low. "I didn't think I'd ever feel this." Eliza's eyes sparkled, and she reached up to touch his cheek gently. "Nathaniel, I didn't come here to save you. But maybe we saved each other." The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Nathaniel pulled her into an embrace, feeling the cold fade from his fingers as he held her close. The silence was filled only with the soft crunch of snow under their boots and the distant calls of birds, but it felt intimate, sacred. Later, neighbors arrived, checking on the ranch after the storm. They were amazed to see Eliza, the young woman who had survived the blizzard, and to witness Nathaniel's unusually wide smile. He introduced her proudly, feeling a joy he hadn't known he could experience. That evening, they returned to the cabin. The fire burned bright, illuminating the wooden walls with a golden glow. Nathaniel and Eliza sat together, wrapped in blankets, sipping hot cider. For the first time in years, Nathaniel didn't feel lonely. The ranch, the snow, the fire, they all seemed to echo the same truth. Life had a way of bringing miracles when least expected. As the stars appeared above the snowy plains, Nathaniel realized that Christmas had given him more than he could have imagined. He had found not only a companion but the return of his own faith, in love, in hope, and in the beauty of unexpected beginnings. Eliza rested her head on his shoulder, and for the first time, he allowed himself to dream of a future filled with laughter, warmth, and the promise of togetherness. Outside, the world remained quiet and white, but inside, hearts that had once been guarded beat together, stronger than ever. That Christmas, Nathaniel's ranch became more than a home. It became a place where love had returned, where faith had been restored, and where two lives had found each other in the most magical of ways.